the only person who's in charge of my YouTube channel. There's a few other people, and I can't remember. And even if you did,
it's not. It's in
but
the
here,
public.
okay, look.
Muhammed Hijab is a public figure.
No problem.
Who,
Joseph,
who
is there anything else you want to say?
propagate truth. He comes here to express a message, spread a message of haq, of truth. Yes, that's why you're here.
I hope so.
This puts a huge question over everything.
Because I deleted your comment.
And you don't remember it.
I mean, Joseph, this seems a bit desperate, man. Are you being serious right now?
You liar.
Is that it?
So if
Have you got
somebody
anything-
refutes one of basically the whole thing, the whole premise.
What's going on here, man?
You've never lied. You've never lied.
It's nothing to do with lying.
Joseph, is it looking a bit like you're clutching at straws a little bit and it's a bit desperate?
It's not a religious disagreement. Basically, the premise is
What premise? There's no argument being made. You're just saying I'm a hypocrite. That's okay. I concede. No problem. I'm a bad man. Okay.
That makes sense.
How does that make? I'm bad doesn't make Islam not true. I'm here to speak about Islam being true.
Then why would you remove comments that put questions on it? Why would you hide?
That debate was not even about Islam. It was about Jewish.
About the treatment of Jews under Islam.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah?
I didn't remove any comment from what I remember. How do we know you left the comment? I don't know, man.
No, I got a screenshot of it.
You can send it to me, man. You can put it up. Okay, look, Joseph, no problem. Say whatever you wanted to say on that comment, say it now. I'm giving you an opportunity.
Okay, so very, very simple. None of the sources that Adnan
Okay, so what?
brought
Yeah, could you send that? Can you say that to Adnan Rashid?
Yeah, you can bring him here. We go.
Okay.
All three of us can have the conversation.
No, I don't need to. When he's there and he's researched this mas'ala, this issue, then you should speak to him about it, not me. I don't know why you've avoided him and come to me.
No,
and that's
he didn't delete the comment. He will happily have an intellectual argument and doesn't need to hide challenges.
Okay,
He's not afraid. From my understanding of Adnan, when I've debated him, he's not afraid of difficult
questions. So why are you afraid of him? Why are you not going to go to him and ask him about his question?
No, I'm asking you because he didn't delete the comment to hide from his viewers. Good challenge.
What was the problem?
The challenge was that none of the sources existed. I spoke to rabbis, I looked at my own library, I checked the internet. None of the sources that Adnan brought existed. I put this as questions on his channel.
The secondary source. So you're talking about primary sources?
Yeah, none of the primary sources.
Which you only mentioned one, by the way.
So unfortunately, I can't remember the other two.
You can't remember?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I can remember one of them.
So you're just attacking me because I can't remember, and you've come here all guns blazing. You can't remember the sources that you're talking about.
I can remember Petrus Ephron, and you can try and ridicule all you like. It doesn't change the
That's
fact
one thing.
that when your video was challenged, you removed
It's
the
not my
comment.
video. It's actually Adnan and you.
Yeah, but you posted it on your channel.
Okay, no problem.
You framed the debate in a way that was insincere.
Okay, is there anything else you want to
framed
say?
the debate in a way that was insincere.
Okay, I'm bad. Okay, what else do you have to say?
That's it.
Sound like my wife, really. What can I?
Forgive me for interruption. We have come to listen to this gentleman, and you are behaving like a dog in the manger. I'm sorry to say.
Well done.
There's another.
Well done.
Sorry to say.
That's fine. If you're sorry, it's okay. I forgive you.
We have come to listen to this gentleman, you are behaving like a dog in the manger.
I was here before you.
Well,
We're having a conversation.
So Joseph,
can you allow us to
do
listen to him?
you want to talk about something meaningful?
Yes.
So I thought that was meaningful, but we can talk about something else.
Because I'm not here to defend myself. If you want to say I'm a bad man, I'm happy to take on
We
the chin.
can talk about how when Islam comes under attack, you will do everything to evade and to distract than deal with the actual accusation.
So what's Islam? Is Islam Muslims? Are you talking about Islam?
Talking about
civilization, or
I would talk more about civilization, like throughout history, but we can also talk about the actual religion itself, if you'd rather, whichever. But I would say whenever either of those come under attack,
but
you will do everything in your power.
Josie, you're a clever man. You're an individual that's done some education in this country. When you say the word Islam, and you refer to it as an inanimate, it's an entity, really. It's a set of ideas.
Yeah,
so you say it's like saying if Pythagoras' theorem comes under attack, Pythagoras' theorem attack it and try and evade. It's not a living thing to react in that way, is it? It can only be enacted through people's actions, Muslims. Right?
People defend their ideology.
And if you're saying,
I'm saying that your way of defending yours isn't sincere.
No problem. I'm bad. No problem. There's very many bad Muslims. I'm sure you'd agree. There's many bad Jews as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the discussion about?
The discussion is about you propagating Dawah.
Okay. So it seems like you've got a bullet. You got a gun with no bullets in it, and you're just shooting. You have nothing to say to me today, do you?
No, I absolutely have something to say.
Please,
to you.
please.
All right, so we can deal with the actual issue. The issue was Jewish civilization and Islamic civilization.
I think Adnan
And
is
how
better
the
to deal with that.
Okay, so you said, is there anything we could talk about? I gave you a
No,
subject.
no. You agreed, by the way, in that discussion with him, and that, you know, if you want to go into detail, you can go into it with Adnan because he's done more research than me on this matter. But you agreed that there were points in Islamic history that Jews, that were treated well,
Absolutely.
and that they lived harmoniously with
Absolutely.
Muslims. So that's fine. What we're saying is that the Islamic empires that existed aforetime for 1,200 years or whatever it was, they had the propensity to produce that kind of result. So it's not always
What's that kind of result?
a result of harmony between Muslims,
Okay,
Christians,
so
and
when
Jews.
the hadith talk about forcing the Jew to the narrow side of the road,
Okay, so let's deal with that,
Yeah.
right? So the hadith that Sahih Muslim, which talks about فَأَطُّرُّهُمْ إِلَى side them, put them to the side of the tariq of the way, and Nawawi comments on this because he does a sharh of Sahih Muslim, and he says about this that this is in the context of war.
so why does it talk about the street? It doesn't talk about war anywhere.
It doesn't
in
say
the
street,
hadith.
it says tariq, the pathway.
Yeah, pathway.
Yeah, no, but every hadith is surrounded by certain context. So An-Nawawi for us, he's a sharh. He does the sharh of the hadith. He's not an apologist. He lived a very long time, even before Ibn Taymiyyah. He's a person we take. So I'm giving you a scholarly source. You can check it. He's a Shafi'i. He says that this applies in the context of war, and this was connected to some of the wars that existed between the Muslims and the Romans at that time as well.
And so why then throughout Islamic history, when there was no war, when there were times of peace, this has been enacted?
Well, throughout Islam, look, Joseph, once again, you're a clever guy. When you say throughout Islamic history, I mean, there's so much history there to talk about in one breath.
Why should a religion that's perfect be subject to such gross interpretation or misinterpretation?
Well, I'm not conceding you the point that all of Islamic empires, from Spain to the Abbasids to the Umayyads to all of those empires, every single one of them had that kind of a relationship with Jewish people. I'm not conceding that to you, and I don't think you could prove that easily. I don't think I could,
So we've got lots of Jewish writings from Jews who lived under different caliphs.
Some
And-
caliphs might have done bad things, like the Muwahhidun, the Murabitun, and I agree, I accept. They were very harsh with Muslims, and they were very harsh with Jews.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, I'm not here to defend those people. I'm here to I'm not. I'm here to defend the Quran and the Sunnah.
But that's what I'm saying. If the
So I'm
Quran
telling
and
you,
the
my
Sunnah
interpretation-
can be perverted so easily.
No, anyone can have a bad interpretation of things.
So only you have the.
No, I
interpretation.
quoted you a scholarly source.
But this is the difficulty with
Go
this
ahead.
argument. If something is divine and from God,
Yeah, all right.
and the perfect instruction for humanity,
All right.
yet it talks about things which, on the surface, seem pretty bad. So slavery, forcing people.
So you
to-
talk about the Old Testament?
No, we can go there. Absolutely, we can go there.
No, hold
But
on, because
yeah.
these things apply to the Old Testament.
So
you
I
know
agree.
that.
I agree, and I can give you a Jewish explanation.
So this argument applies to yourself. That's it.
Yeah, we can definitely
Okay,
go
good,
there.
right.
But you're saying this is a religion from God that's perfect and unchanging.
Yep.
Yet Muslims throughout history have based, I would say, quite.
You seem
Threat
quite.
to us?
What are you talking? Can you get to the point? I mean,
So that,
Yeah.
we just gave an example of.
right. And I've
Muhammad.
explained it. I say that I don't accept that interpretation. That's talking about war. It's talking about combat. And I've given you some scholarly
But
sources.
there are many scholars who are more authoritative
Like
than
who?
you. So Ibn Kathir is an example.
What does he say? He
So
doesn't
I'll
do
go
it.
back-
He doesn't do a sharh of the hadith. He does a tafsir of the Quran. And Nawawi does a sharh of Sahih Muslim, so it's more applicable here. And by the way, Nawawi is more authoritative than Ibn Kathir when it comes to hadith because he was a muhaddith,
Yeah.
whereas Ibn Kathir was a mufassir.
Okay.
Okay, and he came after him, by the way.
And that's fine, but is he obviously not more authoritative
Who?
than you? Ibn Kathir.
Yeah, but Nawawi is more authoritative than Ibn Kathir in this. What I'm trying to say to you is, I'm not denying the. Look, before you do this,
Okay.
let me agree with you, right?
Okay.
There's verses of the Quran and ahadith that the Prophet narrated, which can be conceivably used, by jurists and lay people in order to create some kind of to create problems for communities. Okay, and I think the same thing can be applied to every religion,
I agree.
and more specifically the Abrahamic ones, right?
So I would agree, and I think here's the distinction.
And
between-
I'm just telling you, me personally, my personal opinion on that hadith is as follows. that it does not apply in a generic sense, even if Jews and Christians lived with underneath Islamic law.
We could go through every single
And
one.
I've given you my source, it's not from me.
Jews being able to live in Mecca and Medina. We go to Muslims being able to capture slaves at time of war.
Well,
we could do with legalized rape. There's so many different areas which could be perceived by someone like you and myself as slightly problematic.
So you said the third thing, let's just deal with the most egregious of those contentions, which is the third one you've mentioned, which can, I think, easily be repudiated.
Which one's that? Rape.
Yeah, so you said legalized rape.
Yeah.
So can you give me your source for this?
So an example would be when you take a slave. A Muslim is allowed to have relations with his slave.
Okay.
And then there's a question on the status of the children. There's a question on...
What is the question on the status of the children? No, you don't need your phone. Just
I do need my phone because I don't want to say something incorrect.
Okay, well, you've already done that. So
okay, so you're saying that a Muslim
Yep.
is not allowed to have relations with a slave woman?
What I'm saying, let's be very clear. You said legalization of rape. Yes?
But that's what that is by
No,
British
I
law.
said that
By
that
British
can-
law, that's law. You can't. Can a Muslim, can a husband, can a wife refuse a husband?
Yes.
That's not what the Quran says.
No, hold on. If she refuses her husband, the man can't force her. And the same thing.
What does
hold on. Let me
Quran
explain.
say?
Can I explain?
Yeah.
The
then
Quran
we'll
doesn't
go on to
mention this.
slave
The
women.
word ikhtisab is not in the Quran.
It talks about you go and plough a field or something from memory.
Yeah, nisa'ukum harthun lakum fa'tu harthakum anna shi'tum. Your women are a tilth for you, so plow your tilth whenever you want.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you can force them.
So does a
And
woman need a consent?
Yes. Can
you show me?
Yes.
Hadith?
Yes.
Speaks to that.
Yes. So you said, and by the way, not only just at the time where there was indentured servants, they need to consent as well. Based on what hadith?
Indentured servants or slaves?
You can call them slaves if you want. I don't mind.
I mean, no. What's this? Just for the
But
camera
by the
for
way,
myself, can you make a distinction?
actually, an indentured servant, from an academic perspective, is a type of slave. But it's a type of slave which is not, child slavery or something like that. But going back,
No.
Yeah.
How does a slave that's captured in a time of war relate to what you just described?
Yeah. So that's exactly.
Can
what
the
we're talking
slave who was captured at a time of war go free?
about. Yes.
No, they can't.
Okay. Now you've asked me a question, then you've answered it for me.
Okay, so I don't believe that's true. How
Okay,
can
can
a
I?
slave go
Well,
free?
no, you've asked two questions, and I'm giving you
perfect.
the answer you don't want to hear. All right. So the first question you asked was, can a woman decide not to have sex with her husband? Yes, she'd be sinful for it, just like the husband.
Okay, so she'd be sinful.
Yeah. No, hold on. Can I?
Yeah.
Allow me.
Yeah.
Both ways, man.
The husband and the wife, when they get a nikah, which is the contract of marriage, which many scholars say is a business contract. That's what it is in essence. Like Ibn Qudamah says that a lot of Hanafi say that. If the husband refuses the wife for no good reason, or the wife refuses the husband, it's exactly the same way either way. Because if there's no good reason, there's no marad, there's no disease or anything like that. The whole point of marriage is that you're meant to facilitate. It's meant to be facilitative. It's meant to make things easy for each other. Now, the reason why, by the way, sorry, Joseph, look, put it away if you don't mind for a second. Let's have a one-to-one discussion. It's not about just attacking Islam and this. Let's have a discussion, like, honestly. If you really want to learn and this and that, we can do it.
No, I just need sources to respond because I'm not Muslim.
I will
I'm not an expert like yourself.
No, I'm not an expert, but I'm quoting the expert.
And the issue with last time was I believe Adnan didn't know his sources, so I just want to make sure what I say is
I will
correct.
tell you exactly what. Can you look at me, please? I try and pay you the courtesy of looking at you. So, look, what I was going to say is that the question of rape is absolutely unacceptable in Islam. What's the evidence from that? The evidence for that is what Ash-Shafi'i wrote from the Quran and Sunnah. La darar wa la dirar. Hadith. You can't cause harm to yourself or reciprocate harm. You can't cause harm to other people. And so, based on this hadith, all of the scholars of Islam would say, because if you have sex with a woman, sorry to be very explicit here, but without her consent, without her wanting to do it, it's going to cause her harm. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Yes.
But
No.
Yeah.
And Ash-Shafi'i would agree. Malik would agree. And in fact, it's mentioned in their books where both of those men, in the case of Malik, it's been narrated upon him, but in the case of Ash-Shafi'i, in his Kitab al source, his Kitab is called Kitab al where he says with an indentured servant, if she refuses you, in other words, she does not give her a consent, and you force yourself upon her, then you are actually you have a punitive punishment administered upon you. Now, the second question you asked was, can an indentured servant be freed if they want to? And the answer to that is categorically yes. And what's the evidence for that? It's in chapter 24, verse 33, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about mukataba. Now what is mukataba? According to Al-Qurtubi, who is a Mufassir of the Quran in Spain, and one of the most authoritative in the Islamic history, he said that a mukataba, and he quoted some salaf, he quoted some sahabis. He said that, like Ibn Mas'ud and others, if someone who's living in the house of an individual wants to be freed and says, look, I don't want to be with you and I don't want to be in this setup anymore, and they go to Al-Qadi, which is a judge, and then they tell the judge, I don't want to be in this house anymore, and if they don't have a criminal record, in alima fihim khayra.
And this is non-Muslims?
Non-Muslims as well. Yes, non-Muslims as well.
Okay, so just because can you explain that?
Yeah.
So
Can
you're
I
telling
explain?
me that just very quickly, you're telling me that at a time
No,
of
but
war,
you didn't let me finish that last sentence. Sorry, I apologize. So in that case, if they go to the Qadi, Al-Qurtubi says, they can forcibly be freed. So in other words, if that person is not happy in that situation, they will forcibly be freed. In other words, why is it now? The question is, why would someone want to be in that situation? The reason is because remember, this is an ancient time. You didn't have social housing. You didn't have accommodations and so on. Some people literally felt like that was only their only way that they can reintegrate into a society, to get provisions, to be protected by the military men that were living in their homes and so on. So some people opted, and this is in the historical record as well, up until the Mamalik, both in Egypt and in India, to be part of that system. So what I'm saying is that, Islamically speaking, that opinion does exist, and it's mentioned in our sources, and I've given you the sources. Do you see what I'm saying?
So I see what you're saying.
And is that fair? Is that fair to say that?
That may be what you believe, but it's very, very hard for me to accept, and I'll explain why. Imagine I'm a Jewish tribe living in Medina, Hyde, and the Jews and the Muslims, for whatever reason, come to be fighting each other, and there's a conflict. The Muslims slaughter all of the males, from my tribe. All of the men are killed. And you're telling me that not only would the Jewish children and women that survived the massacre want to be slaves, they would also want sexual relations with their Muslim masters. Now, if anyone
I didn't say that.
I'm making it real, because when you
That's
build
not making it real. That's just a straw man.
When you paint this ideal scenario, it was more primitive back then. Life was difficult. Life was good as a slave. What we need to do that is contextualize that to reality.
I didn't say life was good. But can you quote me right? Because you were just upset with me for deleting your comment.
Okay,
well, now you're doing something more egregious than that.
Which then?
I never said life was good as a slave. I never made that comment.
Better than...
No, I never made these comments.
And then I misunderstood your
argument.
Okay,
no, just put it on notes what I say so that you don't misquote me, please.
So what did you say?
What I said was, my main argument was that in the Islamic tradition, there is this opinion which is attributed not only to a Qurtubi, but it goes back to the Sahaba.
Why would a slave want to remain a slave? That's the question.
What I'm saying is, in that time, where there was Assalamu alaikum, how are you, brother? You okay? Very good, good to see me. Sorry. So, one sentence at a time. That it's in their records, they can free themselves forcibly, number one. Number two, what I said was that some did not opt to do that directly because they feared the military. Like, for example, now you have to remember that there were wars going on. They free themselves, they have to get their own accommodation, they have to get their own housing, they have to pay their own bills, and they're going to be in their own danger. Now, if you're in a house, seriously, if you're in a house and this person is protecting you, seriously, they're military. They've got swords. I remember it's a bit like America. Everyone's got swords. Okay. These guys don't have swords.
I thought that's basically what I said. Well, it's fine. Now that you've corrected me,
it's not about better. Point? It's just about fear of. Okay.
What I was trying to do is contextualize it so people that are watching.
Well, that's the context.
So in Syria, there is a conflict. At the moment. Now, there were people that were taking slaves.
Yes, and unjustly.
And there's unjustly, absolutely.
Yes.
We're both in agreement. ISIS, Daesh are horrible.
Yes.
Now the same scenario exists, and what you're basically arguing is that the slaves who were living under ISIS or under anyone would be so afraid of wider conflict that they'd rather remain slaves.
It could be like that.
And even if that were the case, it doesn't make it morally right.
Okay.
It's actually quite a scary concept. So I'm going to
Well,
read.
it depends on
I'm
the
gonna-
context.
can
Well,
I have my
morally
point?
right, it's in the Bible.
You
It's
spoke.
Well, hold on, Joseph, hold on.
No,
So
I let you speak.
okay,
Please
yeah.
give me the same courtesy.
So can you address the fact that it's in the Bible as well?
Mohammed, I let you speak, please.
You're a Jew at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah. So I'm giving, and tell me, hold on, sorry. Joseph, sorry.
Can I please, Mohammed? I let you speak for a long time.
Can I have one more thing?
No. I let you speak. Let me respond. I listened to what you said. So I'm going to read from the Hadith.
Yes, okay.
Narrated Abdullah bin Zama.
What book is it?
Sahih Bukhari.
Okay.
That he heard the Prophet delivering a sermon, and he mentioned the she camel and the one who hamstrung it. Allah's apostle recited, when the most wicked man among them went forth.
Surah Al-Shams, chapter 91.
You know your stuff. Then he said, a tough man whose equal was rare and who enjoyed the protection of his people, like Abi Zama, went forth to him and hamstrung it. The Prophet then mentioned about the women in his sermon, it is not wise for any of you to lash his wife like he lashed a slave, for he might sleep with her in the evening. Then he advised them not to laugh when somebody breaks wind, and it goes on to something else. But there's an example of saying where a slave master can lash a slave. I'm going to bring a few more and then you can respond.
Just one at a time because it's going to be convoluted otherwise. So the reason why that is there, number one, you're not allowed to lash your slave. Okay, what is it talking about? Can I explain? Number two, the Quran says that slaves, in terms, because in Islam you have punitive laws like lashing, yeah? Slaves get half of the amount that a normal believer gets. It's in Surah An-Nisa, chapter 4 of the Quran. Number three, what we're talking about, so for example, where an offense would be punishable by death if it was a non-Muslim, it was a Muslim, but in a case where the Muslim is free, with the slave, they wouldn't have the death penalty impinged upon them.
That doesn't reconcile with what we're saying.
Hold on, let me explain. However, the administrator of the punishment, in some cases, can be the owner themselves. Does that make sense?
No, it says it is not wise for any of you to lash his wife like he lashes his slave.
Okay, no, hold on.
Like he lashes him.
No, am I agreeing with you or disagreeing? I'm saying that I agree that in some jurisprudential schools of thought, some scholars say that you can administer the punishment yourself. So, for example, if you saw the indentured servant having sex with another indentured servant, or let's go even further. Sorry. Let's go even further. Excuse me.
It's not contextualized.
Hold on. No, but that's why you have to do something called Jama'a Adilla. You have to look at all the dalils. Look, this is a decontextualized approach to Islamic jurisprudence. You're bringing me singular hadiths.
Okay, I'll bring more.
I'll bring more. No, I understand. But you're not willing to reconcile. Joseph, please. Joseph, in the book of Numbers 31:18, it says you can take the slaves that have not known any men and have sex with them and rape them. You're talking to me about rape in the Quran and the Sunnah. Can you explain this verse?
So I will say,
I've already explained my side. Now it's your turn.
No, absolutely. I'm going to just finish on my point.
Then explain.
No, explain.
Yeah.
For the
Yes,
truth sake.
okay, good.
Absolutely. So narrating,
Because it seems a bit of too much like hypocrisy.
I can understand why you'd run away from the question.
No, I didn't run away from
bin
it.
Zama, the Prophet said, none of you should flog it. This is Sahih Bukhari again.
Yes, I've already
None of you
explained.
should flog his wife as he flogs a slave, then have sexual intercourse with her in the last part of the day. In the first part is fine, but the last part...
No, come on. I say don't have sex, don't whip the slave and then have sex with them. Don't do this. What's the problem?
It's saying in the last part of the day.
So what does that mean? Mafhum mukhalafa is that
In
you
the
should do it?
morning, it's fine.
No.
In the
No. That's not the mafhum mukhalafa. It doesn't work like that. Nice try. Listen, the point is now, what I'm saying to you is, I've already explained to you how this works in the grander context of things. What we're saying is, sometimes the owner, or whatever you want, the one who's in charge, the master, whatever it is, that person, when they have the indentured servant,
Can we just call them a slave? It's someone you capture in
I can call them whatever I want to call them.
Okay, fine.
An indentured servant is actually one of the category in academics. Is one of the ways of, it's a category of slave anyway. What I'm saying is, and by the way, I don't know why you're smiling, because you're going to run away from Numbers 31:18, which I've already explained all of. Look how many things I've explained. At least 4 hadiths and 4 ayahs. Here I'm saying to you, yes, there are some situations where in which that would be possible. However, that is only in a situation where there has been already a trial and a court and so on. And I've explained that to you. Now explain this to me. in Numbers 31:18, in your book, which you believe is the Torah and the God's word, it says that Moses is commanding the people to take the slaves, not only take them, but the ones who have not known any man, the young girls, have sex with them forcibly, and then also here.
Where does it say? Have sex with them forcibly?
It says you can have sex. Read the verse. And by the way, chapter 31, verse 18 of the book of Numbers in your Torah, where it says you take them as slaves. Not only that, but have sex with them, the ones who have never known a man. Now, some scholars have interpreted that to mean in a forcible way. Now, you could argue it's not, and I'll agree. For example, the Palestinian Encyclopedia.
That's not a scholar.
What do you mean? The encyclopedia was written by a layman? I don't think so.
No. I mean, rabbinic sources. Rabbinic sources. When we speak Islam, I don't go to secular. I go to your primary sources.
I'll send you some primary sources if you want.
Okay, please.
No problem. But what I'm saying here is, the point is, you're shooting yourself in the foot by asking me about things that not only are present in your book, but are present to an extent whereby there's no restriction. Islam came to restrict this kind of thing that was there in the Jewish tradition, where you can go in the Malachites and take the woman and destroy everyone in the village. There's no such. And I want you to explain 31:18, and I want you to tell and look at also Deuteronomy chapter 21 verse 10 onwards, and I want you to also explain to me and the Malachites and First Samuel's how all the village can be annihilated, villages can be annihilated, killed, everyone, and apostasy in the by the way, in the Torah, in the book of Deuteronomy, in chapter 17 of Deuteronomy. Hold on.
Let's just stick on slaves and then we can come
okay,
on apostasy.
Fine. Now, apostasy, you kill the person yourself in the home. Kill the person yourself in the home. Now, in Islam, there's no such thing. If it's your brother, if it's your young thing, you kill them yourself in the home. So all of these things, Islam came to limit it, to reform it, to clean it up, to allow it to solve your issues. So now, I wouldn't even say that they're wrong morally, because I have no reason to say that they're wrong morally. If God said it, it's correct, but God didn't say it, I believe, in the way that it's mentioned in the Torah, in the so-called Torah.
I think you've touched on the fundamental difference between Judaism and Islam. So Islam is a literalist religion. Whatever the Quran and the Hadith say, as long as it's authentic.
Well, there are literalists in Islam.
No.
Not everyone is a literalist.
Muhammad,
I'm not a literalist.
Muhammad, you asked the question, let me respond.
But you said it's a literalist religion. I'm not a literalist.
No, let me respond.
I'm not a Zahiri.
Listen, what I'm saying is, Muslims believe that the Quran is the perfect word of God. By the way, is Ramadan come in tonight?
Yeah.
Ramadan Kareem.
Shukran, thank you.
The Quran is the perfect word of God, and the Hadith. Sorry, it's a little distracting. The Quran is the perfect word from God. The Hadith is the perfect part of the perfect instruction for Muslims to follow. Yeah. Judaism differs slightly. Judaism is, and the Quran itself actually says this, Judaism is much a religion on earth as it is in heaven.
Where does it say that, Quran?
So what did that let me explain?
No, the Quran doesn't say that. Don't misquote the Quran.
No, I didn't say. I said the Torah.
You said Quran.
The Quran, you said the Quran.
You said in the Quran it said that.
Sorry, my mistake. I'm saying.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
I'm saying in the Torah we believe. No, the Quran. Sorry, the Quran says that the Jews worship their rabbis or something to that effect. What does it say? When it speaks about
رهبانهم وأربابهم what do you call it? أحبارهم أربابا من دون الله والمسيح ابن مريم. That they take chapter 9, yes, verse 30, which says that they take their rabbis and their monks as lords beside God and so on.
So effectively what Judaism is very much a religion on this world. So we have something called the Sanhedrin, which is a rabbinic court.
Yes.
And they have the authority to define and interpret what the Torah says, and then it's binding for all of the Jewish people.
But you accept that the
to come back to your point.
Yes.
So do I believe that rape in the Torah, the Quran, anything is wrong? Yes. Does the Torah say the verses that you said? It doesn't say in the way you said, but yes, it does say that you can capture the women. It doesn't say you can force yourself on them.
No problem, it says you can take the young girls.
But it absolutely does say slavery, like in the Quran, is legal in the Torah. Surrounded on both sides by...
Sorry.
The Quran and the Torah both say that slavery is fine. Yeah? The distinction between the two is, if the Quran says something, Muslims can't really change that. That's set in stone.
Yes.
within Judaism, while we can't change the wording, we can change the application via the mechanism.
Yeah, same with Islam.
And so there isn't a Jew today, or in the last, I would argue, 2,000, or certainly 1,000 years, certainly I say just some minutes, probably, in the last 300 years, that's been pro-slavery. Slavery is very much frowned upon within Jewish circles for a long time. In your edge cases.
You're equivocating between what Jewish circles are doing. Let me ask you a direct question.
Okay.
Hold on, sorry. Let me ask you a direct question. Numbers chapter 31, verse 18.
Yeah.
Is it God's word?
Yeah.
Is it moral?
So
Yes or no?
No. I'm trying to answer in my own words. For me, it's not a yes/no question. So I would say, by the standards of the day, back then it was. By today's standards, definitely not.
So okay. So God, hold on. This is very important.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're saying by today's standards.
Yeah.
Now, where do we derive morality? From the standards of the day or from God's word?
So for the Jewish people,
yes,
it's a fusion of the two.
Okay, no problem. But this slavery that you're talking about, was God right or wrong to allow it to happen in your books?
So I don't believe it exists in the way that you describe it.
No problem, but it's mentioned. You already conceded to the point that slavery exists in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
So in your vision, is there any conceivability where there's a time and a place where slavery can be morally okay?
I would say it's always morally not okay.
Okay, so God was wrong in Deuteronomy and Numbers.
You're reading a book,
yeah,
which relates to a time where slavery was everywhere.
No problem. Hold on, this is good. No problem. Yes.
And so from your position, and I understand your position.
Forget about my position.
You're talking mine and I'm talking yours. That's what we both do.
Yeah, no
You're
problem.
saying by your definition, because God says that slavery is morally okay, for you sometimes slavery is okay, but in other times it's not. I'm saying for me,
sorry,
it's
Joseph.
never okay.
I did you the courtesy of answering your questions, and I'm happy to do that courtesy again. But I just want you to do something for me now, which is answer my questions. I've asked you. No. So you're saying it's immoral. Okay, now is it always immoral in every time and every place?
To take possession over someone,
yes.
For me, yes.
Yeah. So the Bible is wrong.
It's not that the Bible is wrong.
The
Bible is, in a way, a historical document.
No problem. Numbers 31:18 is wrong.
So again, Moses is a leader and Moses is a Nabi are two separate things. Now I don't know what's divine revelation. Is God saying that you need to take the let me read the verse so I don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss it.
Because now what's happening, and everyone can see it, I'll be honest with you, Joseph, you're fumbling all over the place.
No, but I can. It's the difference.
You really are.
I will get here on the microphone, irrespective of what.
You're not consistent, Joseph.
Irrespective of what any of the scripture says, and I would say that slavery is immoral all time.
So you
won't.
No, hold on.
You won't.
Listen, Joseph, I don't care what I'm asking now. A question is. You can't have your cake and eat it both, Joseph. Either the Bible is wrong or the morality is wrong. Or the morality is right and the Bible is wrong. Simple. Would you agree?
Which morality?
Would you agree with that?
Which morality?
Slavery is wrong. Okay, no problem. Now, if you believe slavery is always wrong, at every time, even if it means you're trying to reform the thing, at every time it's wrong, you have to look at 31:18. If it's categorically wrong, listen to my words, not consequentially wrong, it's categorically wrong.
And actually,
if it's categorically wrong, is slavery categorically wrong? Is slavery? Yes.
Is wrong, yeah.
Categorically wrong.
Yes.
Yes.
For
okay.
me, yeah.
So Deuteronomy 21:10 and Numbers 31:18.
It's not just that.
Is wrong.
Throughout the Torah, it mentions in different places that you can keep slaves.
Fine. That's wrong.
And I'm saying that's wrong. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. That's consistent.
Now for you.
No. For me, I don't say it's categorically wrong at all. I say it's.
So you think the slavery?
Let me explain. I say it's consequentially wrong.
Okay, explain what you mean.
Well, this is very important now. Because consequentially, yes. As a result of consequences, I believe in certain contexts that if a slave is taken out of one severe station into another better station, or if slavery as an institution, I'm telling you what I believe. I don't care what.
But can you deal with the hadith I quoted?
No. It doesn't contradict my morals. I'm saying that slavery is consequentially wrong.
But they weren't slaves.
But
they
not
were
categorically. Listen, I'm saying slavery is wrong in certain times and places, not all times and places.
But you contextualize my point to Devarim.
I even look at. I will even go into the Old Testament and say that those passages about slavery in the Old Testament and in any thing was to do with what you said before, which is the fact that there was a context of pre-existing slavery there, and you can't expect slavery as an institution to be abolished from the face of the earth.
So that's perfect.
So no.
Our religion,
I'll defend it.
Our religion
hold on.
outlaws bacon. Yeah, outlaws the eating of bacon.
I'm defending.
I know you are. You're doing my job.
Yes, I'm defending your religion better than you. I'm saying that. No, hold on. I'm saying that the Old Testament, it might have even from that angle, you can say it's consequential. If you say it's categorically wrong, you've already based your morality somewhere else. I've already based your morality somewhere else. So what kind of trying to say? I'm going to ask you a very straight one. What kind of Jew are you?
So I'm a Jew that follows the Talmud.
Not really.
Really? Okay, thank you.
No. You don't. You have to follow the Torah. The Torah is the word of God.
No Jew follows the Torah in abstract. Every Jew follows the Torah through the Talmud.
What kind of Jew is this, man? I'm talking about going back to what Moses said. Moses, God revealed the God thing to him. What he said.
Now coming back to the point I made.
For you,
no.
Those rabbis are more important than God.
Sophia was captured at a time of war.
Yes.
This wasn't a slave woman that was taken contextually from being a slave who was ill-treated to being or any of the slaves that are captured in war.
No,
These were not slaves, they were free people.
Let's do one at a time. So Sophia, yes, she was captured at the time of war. Correct.
Yeah.
Was she given a choice?
To be captured?
No.
Because one of the generals took her, and then one of the Sahaba.
Do you think you know more about this than me? Be honest.
You asked me a question, so I was responding to your question.
No, but
and it's not an assumption. You ask me a question, I respond.
I might have some knowledge about this that you don't have. Agreed?
But maybe if you ask me a question, you allow me to respond.
All right. So what's your case? What's your about Sophia?
So with Sophia,
yes,
one of the Sahaba was going to take her for himself. Yeah. And then one of the Sahaba told Muhammad that she's the son of who was the father? And Muhammad then took her for himself, yeah?
It wasn't like that.
I mean, that's what the hadith says.
No, well, you got one hadith you're looking at, but there was more than one hadith. That's the problem. I have to be honest with you, Joseph, yes? This decontextualized approach of Islamic learning will not get you far. In order to understand the seerah, you have to, what you call jama' adillah. Bring all the dalils together, all the evidences together that talk about one mas'ala, and then you understand the time frame a little bit more. So let me explain. There are more than one hadith. There's one hadith that says this, what you said, yes? Which says that there was a person, a sahabi, he wanted to take her as a war booty and so on, but then, because she was very beautiful and so on, he realized that Prophet Muhammad he wanted to, give her to, like as a gift to him. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. What he did, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, is he went to her, and then number one, listen to this. The one hadith says that she was asking him, why did you do this to my family? Why did you do this to her? And he had to go through a whole explanation. This was what happened. We had a pact, we had a treaty and whatever, and then it was a whole process of discussion. After that discussion, he then gave her khiyar. He gave her an option. Another hadith. The other hadith says that he gave her an option. Either go back to your family or you can come with me. So she, according to the hadith,
her husband and father had been killed.
No, her family, our extended family.
Not her immediate family, like her dad and
her parent, her brother and father have been killed.
And husband. She was married.
Yeah. We're not talking about those guys that were killed. Your family are not three individuals. Your family could be your ashira, your cousins, uncles, granddad, whatever. Anyway, so either you go with it, and so she chose not only to be with him but to become Muslim. That's the narrative. Now you could cast aspersion. You could say, well, I don't believe this hadith statements. But to be honest with you, the hadith, as you know, they put everything out there. They put things which are even embarrassing to the Prophet and his wives and so on. So what we're saying is that, and this is called the principle of embarrassment in history. Say when you have hadiths where we put it all together, and you see some things which are undermining some things about the Prophet and his, in the sense that it makes him look like a human, right? It humanizes him. So those things are included. We even have the satanic verses hadith, right? It's still in the books. No one has taken it out and tried to get rid of it. The point is, hadiths are usually indiscriminate. So what I'm saying is, based on the hadith literature, the relationship between Safiya and Muhammad was that he gave her a choice. And he went through a whole process of her speaking, and then she chose to be a Muslim.
So just to go over the context.
Yes, of course.
Her father, her husband are slaughtered.
Yes, killed. In war, yes.
Yeah, in war.
Yeah, no problem.
That same day, she is taken captive by one of the Sahaba who wants to keep him for herself.
Where does it say the same day?
Okay, I'll read it. Okay, so there's four, at least four hadith that I've got on this.
Alright, okay.
The messenger, this is Sunan and
Abu Dawood.
So the messenger of Allah invaded Khaybar and we prayed at Al-Ghada.
Yes.
There in the early in the morning when it was still dark. Then the Prophet rode and Abu Talha rode and was riding behind Abu Talha. The Prophet of Allah passed through the lane of Khaybar quickly and my knee was touching the thigh of the messenger of Allah and I could see the whiteness of the thigh. When he entered the town, he said, Allahu Akbar, Khaybar is destroyed. Whenever we approach a hostile nation to fight, or whenever we approach a nation to fight, evil will be for their work.
Okay.
Abdul Aziz said, they said Muhammad has come.
Yep.
Abdul Aziz said, some of our companions said, with his army we conquered Khaybar and gathered the captives. So we conquered Khaybar and we gathered the captives. Diyah came and said, O Prophet of Allah, give me a slave girl from among the captives. So he's now saying, give me a slave girl. So we're on the day, give me a slave girl from among the captives.
Yeah.
He said, go and take a slave girl. He took Safiya bint Hyde. Then a man came to the Prophet and said, O Messenger of Allah, you gave Diyah Safiya bint Hyde and she is the chief mistress of Qurayza and Nadir, and she is fit for no one but you. So this woman, this slave, is fit for no one but Muhammad. And so this is all on the day.
But she was a slave, remember she became a wife, right?
So not yet, she's not a wife, at the moment she's still a slave.
But just to make clear that, she didn't stay as a slave, that she was freed.
When the Prophet saw her, so he saw her beauty, he said, take any other slave girl from the... Take any other slave girl from the captives. He said, the Prophet of Allah, what dowry did you give her? He, Anas, said, herself he set her free and married her, which is what you're saying. So
that's one hadith.
That's one, another hadith.
But it doesn't say anything on the day. You said on the day.
No, it's literally on the day.
No, Joseph, that's wrong. No, it doesn't say on the day. Let me tell you why that's wrong. Do you know why that's wrong? Can I explain why that's wrong? Because there's another hadith. Look at me, please.
So I just want to...
The reason why that's wrong is because she went through Hyde. She went through a whole the process of Hyde is like some say sometimes it can be 1 month, sometimes it can be a 3-month period where you have to when you're divorced, you have to go through that process.
So all of these slaves were kept in some pen for 3 months where they became Muslim?
No, they might have been in the house of the person that they were going to be with, but then there's no sexual intercourse. Or there might have been like that. It might have been the fact that they were floating around like that.
But irrespective, there's no escaping the fact. This was a free woman.
No, she wasn't. She was a slave.
No, she was a free woman.
No, she was a slave.
Her family was slaughtered, and then she was made a slave.
No. She was a slave, and then she was freed by Prophet Muhammad.
No, she wasn't a slave in the Jewish community.
Oh, is that what you're talking about? Yeah. But in
the Muslims enslaved her.
Listen, let me explain to you something, right? In the ancient world, everyone was a slave. Everyone. That was the nature of the day. Maybe the one empire that didn't do this practice was the Persian Empire at one point in time. But almost all of the empires of world history, when you had war, they would enslave individuals.
That's my point.
They'll make them into prisoners of war. What I'm saying morally, that process, I would say, is consequentially wrong. Like now and here, where there's no slavery, it's been abolished, we shouldn't put it back into place.
But in Mauritania, where you still basically have slavery.
No, my teacher's Mauritanian. My main teacher's Mauritanian.
Yeah.
Okay, and I explained. He went through a whole thing with me about this. I explained to him. He said that it's not allowed. What's going on there is illegal. It's not right.
It was recently made illegal, but it's very, very widespread.
No, but even before they made it illegal. Anyway, look. The point I'm making to you is, Joseph. Let me be frank with you. Okay, if you wanna, because we're trying to be, academically ingenuous, and you're coming and you're talking about hypocrisy and whatever in the beginning. What I want to say to you is very straightforward. You're a Jew, all right? Which means you believe in the Torah. We don't have to. This doesn't have to happen. Okay, we're trying to attack each other's holy books. That's why I paused.
It's not. I'm not trying to attack your holy book.
I know. But let me explain something. I looked at your holy book and I said you've got these verses in the Old Testament and so on, which frankly show an institution of slavery that doesn't have as many restrictions, or
You don't know what the institution. Because we're going through the Hadith. We haven't been through the Talmud.
Let me explain something, right? Zakat, part of it goes to freeing slaves. The Quran says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةُ فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ. What's the good way? Freeing slaves is a good way. The Quran chapter 24 verse 33 says that if a slave can be made free against the will of the servant, as we said, and Qurtubi is a reference for that. We said that also there's some things like if you have sex with your wife in Ramadan, which is coming over right now, that you have to free a slave. If you say some words of insult, as I mentioned in Surah Al-Mujadala, chapter 58 of the Quran says, فَتَحْرِيرُ رَقَبَةٍ, you have to free a slave. If you say an oath, and the oath is, you're talking about an oath, right? If I say an oath and it was incorrect, you have to free a slave. The Quran is like a sieve, right? The institution of slavery is like sand. Instead of trying to open a latch, it said, okay, here's slavery, let's get rid of it slowly, incrementally, gradually. Now what I'm saying is that's the Islamic position that's not found in the Old Testament.
And this is the mistake you're making.
Can you give me a reference?
So perfect. Yep. So in Judaism, as I said before, a literalist would read the Old Testament, and that's what many Christians do. They will read. In Judaism, we have a concept called the Karaite, who's like a Quranist.
Yeah.
And you read the Torah, but no Jew reads the Torah in abstraction. So in Judaism,
no
even
Jew
in the
white.
Torah,
I mean, you're an academic, right? So saying no Jew is a bit foolish. Look, you're an academic, right?
I wouldn't say that. No.
Okay, so you're an intelligent guy. So if you're an academic and intelligent guy, making the statement "no Jew" in the history of
no. There's a label for the Jews that do that, but the majority of Jews, like the majority of Muslims, follow the Hadith. Right. The majority a lot of what we're talking isn't in the Quran.
But some prioritize the Torah over the Talmud.
All Jews prioritize the Torah. Torah is primary source.
Yes.
And the Talmud supports it, but the Talmud is the glasses with which you read the Torah.
Fine. So by the way, that's your school of thought.
No, that's the mainstream Orthodox.
No. There are some Jews who would disagree with your stance.
Jews?
Many.
No. Which Jews reject the Talmud?
Many. No. I'm not saying any Jews would reject the Talmud, but what I'm saying is your focus on the Talmud, right? Aside from the Torah, is something controversial in your community.
No, it's not. Give me one community that believes that.
What, Haredi Jews?
All Haredi Jews believe what I believe.
No, they don't.
All Haredi Jews follow the Talmud. If you go to any yeshiva, all they study is Talmud.
No, I didn't say that they didn't believe in the Talmud. I've never said that. The Quran even says that. It references it implicitly by saying that they follow the rabbis more
only that the Quran quotes the Talmud.
Well, that's what you think.
No. Someone who saves a life is like he saved all of humanity. Someone who destroys a life is like he destroys. That's the Talmud.
Yeah, okay, but it says in the Quran, وَمَنْ أَحْيَا, it says مَنْ قَتَلَ نَفْسًا بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ أَوْ فَسَادٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ. It doesn't say whoever saves a life. It says whoever kills saves a life for not creating corruption or for not killing a life. So it's not the same quotation. Anyway, number one. Number two is...
You just added, you gave tafsir.
No, that's the Quran.
What's the Quran say?
The Quran says, من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا. Whoever saves a life... Whoever kills of somebody, yes, aside from for the thing of murder, for the crime of murder.
Does it say?
Yes.
Okay.
All corruption in the land, it's as if you have killed all of humanity. Whoever saves them was like saying, so it's different phraseology. Anyway, the point is this. What I'm making to you is, I've just given you 5 or 6 things which reform.
Judaism also reformed slavery before Islam.
No, I'm not talking about Talmud. Get me from Torah.
No. It's like saying I'm not talking about the Hadith. Give me from Quran.
No,
you
it's
can't
not Hadith.
separate the two.
Let me tell you what Talmud is. You explain to me if I'm right.
Please.
Talmud is, like you said, in a way, but it's the rulings of those rabbis that goes even before, like it's rulings. It's rulings of the rabbis.
Which rabbis?
All the rabbis that came across time, and it's like basically case law to say, yeah. It's like case law. So you refer to it and they make the
Have you been listening to my videos? Because I'm
Is that what you
literally
said?
one of the few people who
Is that
says
what you said?
this isn't what most Jews believe.
I've never heard
This
that.
is what I propagate.
I've said that.
Okay, you
I'm
said that.
not.
You think like me.
Okay, so it's case law, isn't it? So we have that.
No. So
we have that in ijma'. We have that in ijma'.
No, you're mistaken. So
No, it's not.
the Talmud, there's basically.
You said you said it and I'm mistaken.
No, I'll explain why.
All right.
Because it's like half of what I say, but misconstrued slightly.
All right.
So, in Judaism,
You're my sheikh, rabbi, innit? So if I get it wrong, it's your fault. Go ahead.
in the Talmud, you have what's called the oral law, and in the Torah, you have what's called the written law.
Okay.
Some of the oral law